acres burning in Texas wildfires, floods, all over the farmland in Middle America, 2,000-mile storm dumping snow into all the way from Texas to Maine, Pakistan's fires destroying the air of Moscow. How can you look at this and say, it's just all
no big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. But, people are still doing it. It's remarkable, isn't it?
Well, it really is. I mean, and every day you get something else. So, now it's Arizona burning.
Right.
And the tornadoes that were devastating, Missouri, Alabama, Mississippi, suddenly they're up in Massachusetts, and you're thinking, Massachusetts, that's not Hurricane Alley. and it just keeps expanding. And I think what happens is that why don't we make the connections? I mean, why don't we say that, that, as I would say, as the climate scientists would say, that you can't pin down the absolute linear relationship between a particular hurricane or tornado or flood and what we're doing overall to our planet's atmosphere, but it fits all the models of extreme weather going off the charts.
Paul,
this is what's predicted.
Paul, what they know, the other side knows, the detractors, the science deniers, what they know is that the American public, and they focus this ad nauseum, the American public will easily buy into the notion of we can't know. In other words, that concept. When I try a case, for example, and I've got a science issue, you'll always hear the defendant stand up and say, well, we really can't be sure. We really can't know. And they have focused this to the point, and they realize the American public is so frigging gullible and so incapable of finding what the truth is that it's very sellable, isn't it?
Well, I think that's true. And you look at people's lives right now, and they are scared to death economically. If they have their jobs, they're afraid that they're going to go under or lose them. If they're stretched in every possible way, they're distracted, they're overloaded, and then the people who are actually paying attention, and studying this, and are bringing to bear every tool that our civilization has come up with to understand what is going on in the world, say, you know what, we have been on a path that we cannot continue on, and we have to shift. And, and they're even saying, and there's some good news in there. There's some good news that says there's technologies out there that, in fact, can propel that shift, that if we apply them, it's going to actually be better on the job front. I mean, it's not just you have to go and shower in the dark, the cold showers.
But, Paul, isn't it an inability of the American... I mean, look, let's call it what it is. We have a stupid American public. I mean, that is just the truth. I mean, they're reacting to this in other parts of the world. We have an American public that reads and comprehends on something between the 6th and the 7th grade level. They don't understand that the Tea Party Congress, when they're dismissing just decades of science, the world's best scientists, when the Tea Party Congress gets together and says there's no such thing as global warming, they can't even connect the dot that Tea Party is being paid by the Koch brothers.
Right. No,
they don't even understand the Tea Party there, that Congress, is being financed by friggin' Exxon. I mean, so what, we sit here as progressives, as hopefully thinkers, and we beat ourselves up by what's going on in the world, but we ignore the obvious. We have a stupid American public. I mean, there's no other way to put it. The rest of the world thinks we're stupid, Paul.
Well, I mean, it is true that if you look at this issue, the polls on the issue, were in terms of recognizing the urgency of it, we're at the bottom. I mean, we're not just below.
No,
Germany, France, England, Japan, we're down there, and I don't know how you poll Nigeria, but we're down there below Nigeria. And so what is it? What is going on? It's a combination. I think the fossil fuel industry has more power here than it does in most countries, excepting obviously the Gulf countries and stuff in areas like that. But so there's a sort of critical mass of huge moneyed interests that does everything from just paying off this handful of, quote, dissident scientists. Many of them work for the tobacco companies, doing the same thing with the same strategy.
Yeah, I handled it for really so.
Yeah, you were involved in that.
Yeah.
And so it's that creating the doubt. Oh, look, there's a debate. People really aren't sure. And then at the same time, what else do they do? I mean, I was reading a piece by Ross Gelbspan, who was one of the people who sort of covered this stuff for years. And it was a conversation with somebody at CNN who's saying, this is last year, why don't you link to the extreme weather? Because extreme weather was happening last year as well. And he said, well, we tried, and we got told by the coal and oil industry that they would drive our advertisers away. We were bullied into
right. And that's the American way. That's our culture. But look, it's real simple. You nail it here, and other people nail it as well. And I love. Think of it like this: warm air holds more water vapor than cold air.
Yeah.
Okay, isn't that it? Take warm air, and it holds more water vapor than cold air. So both drying and flooding are issues that climatologists say, yeah, we expect that.
This is part of the pattern. This is what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not La Nina. La Nina is an event, of course. We know La Nina is an event, El Nino is an event, but I'm tired of hearing the idiots, even the Weather Channel idiots, this gray fella out in Colorado saying, well, it's always La Nina or El Nino,
Right. And the thing is, those things exist within a larger context.
Of course.
And the larger context is what we're doing to the climate. So even if there's individual variations, those are still going to be the highs and the lows. They're still going to be affected by what we're doing. And I asked myself, well, why is it? I mean, so some of it is, what do we see in the mainstream media? And what we see are these sort of giving legitimation to people who have no credibility, and making it sound. I mean, I asked in this article, I said, is the American Chemical Society, which is the organization of all, to promote chemistry and all the chemists, is it a radical, ideological, leftist group?
They say this is taking place, right?
The
American Statistical Society. These are the people who do the work for the insurance industry.
Yeah,
these aren't left-wing bomb throwers. These are right-wing conservatives.
Yeah, and Munich Re, which is the largest reinsurance corporation in the world, which in other words spreads out the risk between different local
for people like Lloyd's of London, things like that.
Yeah, like Lloyd's of London. They say that it's terrifying because they're watching their property casualty losses go off the charts, and they speak very, very explicitly about the link with climate change.
And you know what? Let me just say this, Paul. You look at these shots from Joplin, Missouri, the shots from Tuscaloosa. And you realize those are the people that are standing in rubble, okay? Those are the people that these deniers go after to say, well, there ain't such a thing as global warming, and they buy into it. Yeah, and, Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, you name this is, and that area is turned into a dust bowl, but they still don't have the ability to connect the dots. And, the truth is, you had the House of Representatives, something like 240 to 180 something.
Yeah, basically voted to say, it's not real, and I can't remember who was it Ed Mark who basically said, I'm not going to rise in opposition because you're going to repeal the law of gravity next.
That was right. Hey, look, let's take a quick break, Paul. We'll be back.